Do you smell what the Morning Tailgate is cooking?
No, the MVPs and Hall of Fame, that takes care of itself when the team wins. That's what we're going to be about, winning.
He is back, baby! And the Raiders regain the lead!
Raider Nation, gather round and let's talk it out with Vince Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignor, and Clay Baker on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
Fire up the cue! Grab a beverage or two and settle in this seat. The Morning Tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920, the flagship for the Silver and Black. Vince Sapienza and Clay Baker coming live from Las Vegas on a Tuesday, March 24th. Clay, it's happened. I thought I knew it would happen. I didn't think it would happen like this or to this extent. The power that is the NFL draft and the machine and the hype, the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys, the pundits, the analysts. Apparently Fernando's not the best quarterback in this draft.
Oh.
I don't know if you heard the breaking news yesterday.
Oh.
I don't know. So apparently during our show yesterday, Dan Orlovsky was dropping bombs of knowledge, truth bombs, according to him, saying that the tape says Ty Simpson is QB1 to him. Has our last 3 months been a lie? Was Alabama in the national championship game? Did I see Ty Simpson running on 4th down, leaping for the end zone? Who won the Heisman?
Yeah, it wasn't Ty Simpson.
And I know that has nothing to do with arm mechanics, tape of a full season, but I'm dripping in sarcasm here as I sit there and say, this is what happens. And I saw reaction from Raider Nation. I know we talked about it. I know JT talked about it. I know Q talked about it yesterday. We didn't get a chance to hear it in real time, so I heard it after and later in the day. And I couldn't help but laugh, but I go, well, here's that competition we were looking for in the draft. What was supposed to be a slam dunk, all of a sudden now people are questioning.
Right. Yes. And it's more than just contrarian thought. Dan Orlovsky has come up with something that is, in his mind, infallible, irrefutable.
Now, we could get into conspiracy theories. Ty Simpson, Dan Orlovsky, represented by the same agency. ESPN needing some new things to discuss in the next 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're like, hey, Dan, maybe show some love to Ty.
Right.
Now, I don't necessarily believe that in terms of the conspiracy.
Sure. Yes.
I do believe Dan Orlovsky believes that on tape he is seeing what either he wants to see, what the tape told him, but that is one, now just one compared to the umpteen thousand in the last however many weeks that we have heard it's Fernando and then everybody else. So, because I didn't think we were going to have this conversation today. I knew it was probably going to come at some point. Is there anything Ty Simpson? Because we've talked a lot about Fernando, right? Fernando did what Fernando did. We've talked about him endlessly. Raider Nation's already gotten number 15 jerseys in silver and black. They've already ordered them. They've already messaged me saying, Vince, got my Mendoza jersey. Had to do the whole custom thing online because they're not available yet. But people already have the Fernando Mendoza jersey. I would imagine some of those people that are hearing the news that from ESPN's top NFL analyst on a Monday, a month before the draft, drops in no dramaticism a bombshell of a contrarian thought to what has been believed for the last couple months. Is that Fernando Mendoza is not the QB1. Do the Raiders really have a decision to make? Well, they do have a decision to make, but has the decision already been made? Is it El Uno Cinco?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is, with the Alabama Pro Day this week, our own Vinny Bonsignor in Alabama set to set his eyes on that Pro Day. That is, without a doubt, going to be a massive topic of discussion this week in Tuscaloosa. Is Ty Simpson really have enough tape, skill, etc., to rival Fernando and make it? Hey, is this guy gonna be the number 1 overall pick? So the question I have for you, at this stage of the game, after everything we know of El Uno Cinco, is there anything Ty Simpson can do this week at his pro day that would cause you pause? That would cause a conversation for the number 1 overall pick? I know even that question alone has Raider Nation being like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But it is the topics of the NFL world. And so now I'm curious. Now I'm curious the temperature of Raider Nation. I would imagine silver and black seething right now. Hot. White hot. Just the fact that this was supposed to be the easy part. We already moved on to pick number 2 in the 36 overall. Let's go on to pick, you know what I mean? Like, do we really have to be wondering if Fernando's the guy?
What does it take to change your mind? You know, is it just an undying faith and belief in what Dan Orlovsky says? Because I would have to see something totally spectacular that I haven't seen already that I liked in Fernando Mendoza. I would have to see something that, that is so superlative that I would be like, wow, my eyes have been, the water has come to my eyes and now I see the light. I did not notice this because in looking at them before, I made a clear-cut decision that I preferred one over the other. But now, with a month to go, now we're changing ideas. Now we're changing horses. Now in midstream. Now we're trying to take a look at this quarterback Ty Simpson in a different light that apparently we haven't seen throughout the regular season and the college football playoffs. So, all right, barring Ty Simpson playing against Miami, can we run it back and have them go to the OB and play at Hard Rock Stadium? All right, no, I guess no, we can't. So now it's down to a pro day. And what can you show us at a pro day as you throw to your friends and everyone's in Umbros and now you're gonna show me that I missed something, that there's an ace up somebody's sleeve.
So for those that may just be tuning in, may just hearing, Vince, Clay, what are you guys talking about? Here's Dan Orlovsky from Monday giving his 2 cents on ESPN's Get Up. Their first show of the day, essentially the time that we're on, about what he had to say about Fernando Mendoza and more specifically, Ty Simpson.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class. I think when you look at the body of work and what was asked of these 2 quarterbacks, you have to start with the question, who needed to do more to carry their football team to play well? Ty Simpson. And it's not close between those 2 quarterbacks. Who took more games over throughout the course of the season? Ty Simpson. It's not even close. And if we're asking, okay, we're trying to see what you are as a player in college and what you're going to be asked to do in the NFL and what translates. I start with, what do you do in moments of panic with the football? Because that's really what separates good to great. I would tell you that Ty Simpson is more consistent in that regard. There's not a ton of moments of panic out of Fernando Mendoza. And then there's moments when he immediately drops his eyes and becomes a runner. Ty Simpson more consistent in that. What guy was asked to do more NFL throws? When I say NFL throws, I'm talking 15, 20, 25-yard in routes, crossing routes, deep corner or sail routes. Yeah. Ty Simpson, and it's not even close in that regard. Downfield throws, the posts and the goes, I think they're close. Mendoza throws a lot of go routes, and he's good at it, but I think they're close. RPO, get it out. That's predominantly what Mendoza's offense was.
Right.
And then I think throwing on the move, they're both relatively equal. So when it comes to moments of panic and big throws, real NFL throws, I think it's clearly Ty Simpson.
So it is, I mean, to be clear, this will get a lot of attention that you feel this way because you are, at this point, I think one of the people whose opinions on this stuff matter the most. And everyone has their opinion, and this is certainly going to be an unconventional one. But you're comfortable saying if you had the choice between the two of them, you would take Ty right now.
I would much rather have Ty, and I like Fernando Mendoza. This is not to slight Mendoza.
Yeah.
I would rather have Ty Simpson at the 15 to 20 range than Fernando Mendoza at 1.
All right, so there's Dan Orlovsky on Get Up, ESPN on Monday. Now, I think that was an important caveat before all the pitchforks get sent in the direction of Dan Orlovsky. His opinion of Ty Simpson was not that he does not like Fernando Mendoza. He's saying in terms of the value and how close apparently in his eyes they are, the value of Ty Simpson at 15, 16 overall compared to Fernando Mendoza at 1 would be his preference. Okay, so that is a key part to the conversation. Mm-hmm. However, early on, he says he'd rather have Ty Simpson.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1.
So that in itself kind of oversteps how he tried to clean it up at the end.
He certainly tried to polish it at the end.
Because if Ty Simpson's QB1, he's the first overall quarterback.
No question.
Right, that is legitimately what QB1 means when it comes to draft, stock, analysis, things of that nature.
It couldn't get any more clearer.
Obviously, you heard Greeny go, all right, just to be clear, this is going to get a ton of attention, what you just said, because you're the only one saying this.
Yeah, which is another way of saying, you sure you don't want to walk this back?
And then that's when Dan Orlovsky said, talking about the value. So as we bring in Vinny Bonsignor, who is getting ready for Alabama's Pro Day, Ty Simpson in Tuscaloosa this week. Vinny, what'd you make of the comments? And is there any truth to what Dan Orlovsky is saying?
Well, in terms of truth, absolutely not the people that I talked to. I'm doing a story right now on Ty Simpson. And I've talked to 5 people that range from general managers to scouting directors, et cetera, across the league. And the consensus is, from their perspective, that there's for Ty Simpson, and nothing against Ty Simpson. There's a lot of belief that he's going to have a nice career in the NFL. But his grade, the consensus grade that I get from the 5 people that I've talked to that do this for a living. And I would imagine, you talk to 5 people. That's going to give you a pretty idea of where Ty Simpson falls in terms of eyes in the NFL. And the consensus grade is anywhere from a 2nd to 3rd round grade. But he will be a 1st round pick. That's just how it goes sometimes with quarterbacks. But nobody that I talk to feels like it's even close between Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. I don't know what Orlovsky is doing here. He did use the word attention, or I guess he said Greeny said this is going to get a lot of attention, and I think ultimately that's what this is all about. When you go on TV every single day, kind of talking about the same things every single day, there's going to be times where you're going to probably contrive an outlandish take. Now, if that's what he feels, that's what he feels. If that's truly how he feels, that Ty Simpson is a better quarterback process than Fernando Mendoza, everybody is entitled to their opinion. Doesn't make him wrong, doesn't make him a bad person, doesn't make him a Raider hater, doesn't make him anything other than somebody with an opinion, one person. And this is scouting is an extremely subjective, art of work. And you're going to just have differences. But I have to say that there's nobody that I talk to that shares that sentiment.
Vinny, when we I started the show, I don't know how much you heard, but I started the show, I said, this was inevitable in terms of something. I didn't necessarily know it was going to be Fernando and Ty Simpson, but this was inevitable. There was going to be some shakeup. Somebody was going to believe somebody in the draft was to be something that nobody else believed. That's just draft season, right? And to your point, when you go on TV every day, you got to have fresh ideas. You got to have fresh takes because especially on ESPN and their morning it's all about takes, right? Like you have to have hard takes in order to get opinions, in order to get reaction, in order to get reaction the way we're reacting right now. Typically, I would just kind of ignore it, to be quite frank, because, as I said, there's been umpteen thousand people that has said exactly what you said. All different kinds of pundits, former players, analysts, scouts, whatever, all saying the same thing. But now ESPN's lead NFL analyst, let's just call him, who's on every single NFL show that they do, sits there and goes, he's my QB1, Ty Simpson. He makes more NFL throws. Now, I'll be honest, I have not dug into the Ty Simpson tape because I thought it was more of a moot point than anything for me after watching the tape from Fernando. I know you say you just talked to a bunch of people that's saying he's a second, third round pick. In my brief,
will be a
seen it.
first-round pick.
Say it again.
He's got a second to third round.
That's
grade,
what I mean. Second and third round grade. Yeah, first round pick.
He will be a first round pick.
But looking at what I was trying to look at very quickly last night to try and find these NFL throws in comparison to Fernando, what am I missing?
I don't know because I don't know exactly what you watched, but I know there's definitely, especially earlier in the season, Ty Simpson was making NFL throws, and there was a case to be made through the first 8 weeks of the season, 6 weeks of the season, that he was definitely pushing for that mantle as the best quarterback prospect in college football. But then there was a clear point where one went in one direction and one stayed at another direction, and in some ways kind of fell off. Now there were some issues in my reporting. There were injuries, and there was the stomach issue that caused him to lose 30 pounds. So the version of Ty Simpson that you saw later on in the year just wasn't, from a health standpoint and a physical standpoint, the same guy that started the season. So not to make any excuses, but it is part of his story. He definitely on tape makes NFL throws, but so does Fernando Mendoza. And here's the thing. One guy that I talked to yesterday was texting back and forth. I said, hey, I mentioned the whole Orlovsky thing, and the response was, who gives a SH blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, who cares what he, honestly, other than, I know that we're basing a show around it, as we should. That's what we do. But if you're a fan, who cares at the end of the day? And if you're going to let it get to you, let it get to you. But there's nobody in the NFL that's and certainly not with the Raiders or anybody in any other building that's really going to Dan Orlovsky for their information. These guys are doing this for a living. They've spent 300 some odd days out of the year scouting all of these guys, including Ty Simpson, and they have their own thoughts, and nobody shares Dan Orlovsky's thoughts, and nobody quite honestly cares what Dan Orlovsky has to say, nor should anybody else. A Raider fan, if you want to get upset, I get it. You're protective of your guy, Fernando Mendoza. He's already, a Raider, basically. And you have every right, to have his back and to go on social media and scream and yell and all that. But at the end of the day, as that person in the NFL told me, who gives a bleep? And that's really, honestly, the bottom line of it all. So what? He has an opinion. It's a wrong opinion. It's not shared by anybody, at least that I talk to. Maybe there are some people in the NFL who feel that, but I doubt that very seriously. So at the end of the day, it's okay, move on. He has something. He said his piece on television. He's got Ty Simpson over Fernando Mendoza. He's kind of a lone wolf in that regard. Nobody should care one iota about it because it's not going to change anything either. Eventually, both guys are going to get on NFL teams, and then we're going to all watch together as their careers play out. And maybe one day Dan Orlovsky will be doing a victory lap, but more likely, he's gonna not that he's gonna regret saying that, but he's probably going to learn where the error of his ways was.
It kind of it harkens back to that moment in time years ago when Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf were going into the draft together, and there was a lot of people split on both sides. Perhaps people were not being as objective when they were taking a look at both quarterbacks. So it puts in this a little bit of a cloud of doubt of like, well, are we looking at everything? Did we miss something as we approached the draft? Because there was a large discrepancy between them once they became NFL players, Manning and Leaf.
Well, to me, that's a totally different situation because if you looked at physical skills, and ability, Ryan Leaf was one of the best prospects you ever saw. What you couldn't account for was one was an extremely polished, button-up, mature person. The other wasn't. And also Ryan Leaf got hurt. I mean, there were injuries but more than that, and those injuries were real. Those injuries were basically career-crippling injuries that he had. But more than that, or independent of that, and prior to that, he was just somebody that just wasn't ready for that kind of stage. He wasn't, wired correctly to handle everything that got thrown his way. It had nothing to do with skill, NFL throws, this or that. He was every bit the prospect that Peyton Manning was. But fortunately for the Colts, they dodged a bullet because they drafted the guy that had the right mentality. And there's nothing about Ty Simpson to suggest that there's anything in terms of that. I've talked at length to his dad. His dad is the football coach at the University of Tennessee Martin. It's great kid, great family, all of that. He'll succeed because of that part of it as well as the physical stuff. But there's no one that thinks that as a quarterback he's as good as Fernando Mendoza. There just isn't.
702-365-9200. Vinny will be joining us live remote from Tuscaloosa. Are we in the city of Tuscaloosa, Vinny?
I am right now in Birmingham. I'm driving to. It is about 40 minutes away, so I'll be headed over there today. The pro day is tomorrow. Looking forward to it.
So I guess the question, and we'll leave this as a tease for Vinny, is there anything Ty Simpson can do with the pro day that would cause you pause? That would cause you to be like, maybe I need to take another listen to what Orlovsky had to say. 702-365-9200. Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports will be joining us in hour number 2. Ryan McFadden of ESPN. We'll talk to him about his ESPN colleague and the little storm he brewed up on Monday. That's coming up later on in hour number 3. But first.
Hey, guys. Always a great time to talk about our great friends over at Sal's Mexican Restaurant. The best Mexican food in California Central Valley. If you're in Selma, Fresno, or Madera, make sure to drop by, ask for Carl, ask for Sal, ask for any manager, tell them that the Morning Tailgate sent you. But you don't even have to be in California to enjoy this fine, excellent food. Just go to salsmexicanrestaurant.com. That's salsmexicanrestaurant.com. You put your order in online. They could deliver it wherever you are. This way your next tailgate, your next party, your next family get-together gets set up with the best Mexican food in California. That's salsmexicanrestaurant.com.
Vince, Vinny, and Clay want to hear from you. Call or text the show at 702-365-9200. Now, back to the Morning Tailgate.
He lines up as an H-back to the right. Here's the snap back. And the throw. Fernando goes to the end zone. Touchdown! Omar Cooper comes up with another brilliant play. And the throw by Fernando Mendoza was dead on the money.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class.
Got to get to the 8. He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way first and go diving toward the end zone. Touchdown! That's where he won the Heisman Trophy.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class.
Whoa. What a day Monday turned out to be. Get home after a couple hours and I see all the vitriol from the Orlovsky fallout. Dan Orlovsky saying Ty Simpson QB1 ahead of his pro day this week. That seems timely as well. Less than a month out from the NFL draft. And as you heard, Fernando Mendoza highlights on the ESPN, by the way, which was, I think, a record-setting viewing audience. Was it not, Clay?
Yeah, it broke records. It caused
so
a
everybody
fervor.
saw it, is what I'm saying.
Everyone saw it. Everyone retweeted it. Everyone had an opinion afterwards. And now it's this, it's just this big jumble of opinion right now, and it's causing people to question, can I believe what I saw with my own eyes even?
Now, again, there is a difference, and as Vinny Bonsignor joins us from Birmingham, Alabama, again set for the pro day, there's a difference between stats, winning the Heisman, having Heisman moments, playing in big games, and then there's another, which is the tape, which is what NFL scouts, front offices do every single year, quarterback or otherwise, to see what does the tape say. Because not everybody's stats. It's not just a stat game. But I think we all agree, at least in this particular venue, that it's all one-sided. And that's why this is the topic that it is because Orlovsky has decided to take this stance rather verbosely. I mean, when you say Ty Simpson is QB1, you are saying the entire trajectory, all the dominoes that are to fall in the draft are different than what just about everybody else believes. And, I know John Spytek kind of joked about it. He's like, we look at everybody's mock drafts and we look at everybody's stuff. And I'm not saying they're sitting there now rethinking everything about their draft board because of that little segment with Orlovsky. But my question, our question, 702-365-9200, is there anything Ty Simpson can do at his pro day or we could hear that would give you pause to that first overall pick? So, Vinny, I know the answer from you, but so I'm going to ask you a different question. As you get set for this pro day, give our listeners, I know they understand what a pro day is, but give us an insight as to what these front offices, these scouts who have done 99% of the legwork on these draft prospects, what a pro day entails from their point of view.
Well, before we get to that, I think it's also important to point out, Vince, there were 12 players on Alabama that were invited to the scouting combine. There's first and second round picks in and around, aside from Ty Simpson. So I say that because last I checked, Indiana played Alabama this year. Both quarterbacks had an opportunity on teams. Like I said, those are just the guys that are draft eligible that went to the combine and are going to be out on that field tomorrow at the University of Alabama. 12 of them, and there's more at the pro day because not everybody was invited to the scouting combine, and some of those guys are going to be on rosters in the NFL, at least in training camp at OTAs. The talent that Ty Simpson played alongside, while it wasn't top tier compared to other Alabama teams, 11 of his teammates were invited to the scouting combine. He wasn't playing for Detroit Mercy or some Cinderella story team in college football. They had more players invited to the scouting combine than Indiana did. And I say all that to say, we all saw what unfolded on that field at the Rose Bowl. Did we not? One quarterback dominated and then continued to dominate, and one quarterback with maybe I can't say that he had the exact same talent that Fernando had, but again, 12 players went to the combine from Alabama, and who played great in that game when it got to a face-to-face situation, who prevailed, who played good, if you want to look at the tape. So anyway, I still it's hard for me to believe that Dan is going out on this kind of is up there staking his claim or putting his flag on this kind of a hill. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. But that said, a pro day is basically, it's all going to be scripted for the quarterbacks. This is a lot for, I think it's less about Ty Simpson. It's hard to look bad in these kind of situations or settings and formats because everything is scripted. You're throwing, against air. You're throwing to guys that you've thrown to for years, basically, in some cases. But for other players, the Caden Proctors and the LT Overtons, the players that are going to be able to go out there and show their explosiveness and their athletic ability and other things that scouts want to see. You get an up close look at a bunch of really good football players from Alabama. If you're from the NFL's perspective, wide receivers, some guys didn't run their 40s; they'll run their 40s tomorrow. Some guys didn't do some of the agility stuff; they'll do it tomorrow. And across I know Ohio State, I believe, is going tomorrow as well. So it's just another chance to visit with and to see up close and personal some of the top players at Alabama. But I'm just befuddled by Orlovsky when you can like we literally saw both quarterbacks. They didn't square off against each other, obviously, but in a very comparable way, they led two really good teams into the playoffs. And one was dynamic, one was tremendous, and the other just wasn't. And I think that by that time of the year, if you couldn't tell who the best quarterback in this draft was, just at that point in time, let alone everything else that transpired last year, and then continue to believe that, I don't get it. Other than maybe he's just doing it for attention.
Yeah, and so and the reason why I asked the question to our audience and to us that we can have this discussion. But again, I think I know the answers, at least on our part, but we'll voice them. That's what radio is, I think, at the end of the day, not keeping the thoughts inward. Garrett Nussmeier had himself his pro day over there at LSU, right? And rave reviews about how he looked, about how he threw, what he did. Now, in terms of Nussmeier, the big knock on him, and he said, I want to say it was, Vinny, I'm not sure if you were at the podium during Nussmeier's combine stuff, but he basically, first or second question was asked about, his season and how it didn't. He goes, well, I wasn't healthy. And he made it very clear that he wasn't healthy. And so seeing him at this pro day, now everybody's sitting there saying, oh, man, we're going to have to take this guy a lot higher. We have to take into account that maybe he didn't have the year he was, but maybe that's because he was hurt. He seems fully healthy. We had the interviews with him. And so that's why I asked the question that I asked. So Nussmeier's stock seemingly improves after his pro day because he goes bananas.
Let me ask you this, Vince.
Yeah.
According to who?
In terms of Nussmeier?
Yeah. Who said that his stock is higher? I'm not asking this flippantly, but we listen to sometimes TV people or analysts, and we think that that's shared within NFL buildings. So I don't think he helped himself I don't think he helped or hurt himself in terms of NFL people. So when you say he helped him and his draft his stock is getting better, according to who?
Well, that's what the internet is saying. I obviously am not in a single front office. You are not in a single front office, though I know you're connected. What I'm saying is the reaction from his pro day is, oh, this guy's stock is going up. We have no idea what these front offices are saying. I'm not saying I do.
It didn't. Not in. I mean, it not based on yesterday. And I think he'll probably go in the third round, maybe late second, because again, quarterbacks get drafted higher because it's such an important position. But nothing that happened yesterday is going to change his draft status, and nothing that's going to happen tomorrow, I guess, unless he just bombs it. You just provided a caveat. You're like, unless he bombs it.
That's why we're asking the question. We're not in the front offices. The narrative it is, and the reaction around it is a guy like, and I'm using Nussmeier as an example. Whether he moves up or down, it doesn't really matter. I'm simply saying he balled out according to every reporter that was there at LSU.
Right.
Balled out. Looked unbelievable. Looked like a different person according to some of the things I was reading compared to what he was doing in the regular season because he couldn't make the throws because he wasn't healthy. So what I'm saying is, seemingly, Nussmeier helped his draft stock with a great pro day. Because of what Orlovsky said yesterday, as ridiculous as it may be to you and I and Clay, is there anything that Ty Simpson can do at a pro day or any single person at any pro day can do that would make anybody take pause into what the Raiders are doing? That's simply all I'm asking.
No, not when it comes to these high-end guys. I mean, maybe they're, there's an example of Matt Castle years ago at USC. He didn't play at USC, basically, because he was a backup to Matt Leinart and Carson Palmer before that. But the New England Patriots saw him at USC's pro day, and they're like, whoa, this guy's pretty good, and drafted him in the 7th round or 6th round, whatever it is. In a case like that, there's things that can happen at a pro day that can help somebody, but not when it comes to guys that people have had their eyes on now for, like I said, over a couple of years. I mean, these scouts go to practices, and yes, they're looking at the draft-eligible guys, but they're also making notes on the guys that are coming right behind them. So Ty Simpson, people watched him practice over the years. NFL people watched him practice over the years. They've watched him now play games. And Nussmeier people in the NFL understood what Nussmeier was dealing with last year with the injuries. So nothing that he did yesterday changed that from an NFL's perspective. You said the operative word. A bunch of reporters that covered LSU and other reporters that were there raved about him, and that's great. And it makes for great content, TV, newspaper, or otherwise. But it doesn't change anything from NFL people who have been watching this guy for multiple years now, and it won't tomorrow as well. I even say it very loosely that if he bombs, which I don't expect him to bomb, that could affect something. But nothing that he does tomorrow is going to increase his value, and is very, very, very unlikely that his value will decrease as well.
702-365.
From the NFL, again, from the NFL. We could have all of our opinions. We could say, oh, my gosh, that was tremendous, which that's what we do. But we're talking about the really important people, and that's in the NFL.
702-365-9200. Vinny Bonsignor live in Birmingham, getting set for Ty Simpson and the rest of the Crimson Tide's Pro Day this week. We will touch base with Vinny again in hour number 2, but at this time, it is time to provide you all the opportunity, dare I say, of a lifetime, Clay. $2,026. That's the jackpot, baby. We've already had one lucky listener on this particular program win $2,026.
Yeah, as soon as we start it, Raider Nation Radio wins.
And you know what? I don't know if there's no cap on how many winners we can get.
Right.
I don't think I use that the proper way, the 2026 no cap. I don't necessarily know what that means, but you can win again is what I'm saying. Just because somebody else won doesn't mean your chances have been lowered.
No, not up.
So we want you to win.
Today could be your day.
Starting at 8 a.m., the contest begins every day. You text in the keyword of the day. You have till 5 o'clock to do so to 702-365-9200. Text in the keyword of the day. Spell it right. Oh, boy. Here we go. The keyword of the day on a Tuesday, March 24th. Rebels. 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 My password voice. Rebels. REBELS. Text in Rebels. That is the keyword of the day. Text that into 702-365-9200. Starting at 8 a.m. And you are entered for a chance to win $2,026. It is that easy. Right here on Raider Nation Radio 920. Coming up, we'll continue the conversation at hand that Orlovsky has brewed up. We'll get your thoughts on the Morning Tailgate.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class. Who took more games over throughout the course of the season? Ty Simpson. It's not even close.
Welcome back inside the Morning Tailgate, Raider Nation Radio 920. I'm not laughing because I do respect Dan Orlovsky. But it just sounds so funny because he's the only one on that side. He's the only one I've heard in 3 months. Clay, am I missing somebody else?
No, he's the only one.
Is there anybody else out there that has said, yeah, Ty Simpson's the guy, ahead of Fernando Mendoza?
We've had people like Kuiper and McShay saying this is by far not only the best quarterback, but the best player in the draft. McShay last week, I would have taken him over Cam Ward last year at number 1. That's what we're hearing. So Orlovsky stepping in front of this freight train is very unique because he's using these very firm opinions saying it's not even close. Okay.
George on the text line says, I have a question for Dan Orlovsky. Why didn't Simpson run through the playoffs and dominate? And do you think that Simpson could have taken Indiana and made that run that Fernando Mendoza made?
I love you guys. Let's go!
Well, you know what's funny is Alabama did have a chance to go on an Indiana run, except, they ran into Indiana.
Indiana. Lost 38-3. A little rough.
Just for anybody who was checking, Fernando Mendoza went 14 of 16 for 3 tuds in that game.
Simpson cracked rib, leaves early. Boom.
Yeah. I'm not laughing at the cracked rib, but I'm laughing at the fact how many times did Fernando get smacked? Not just in that game. I'm talking about the entirety of the CFP. Smacked. That Miami game.
Throttled.
Let's see. Marcos, I'd like to know what Dan said about previous quarterbacks going into the draft. I'm sure he's been spot on, batting 1,000. Clickbait.
Thinking about cracking open a beer.
Well done. Well done, Clay. Our buddy Matt, this is a classic ESPN move where they create their own content. The only thing preventing the Raiders from taking Mendoza is if he's just a bad guy.
No.
It's editing.
Oh.
It's a little bit of editing.
Okay.
Right there.
Yeah.
TJ in Montana. Orlovsky is clickbait chasing. Hack. I've never seriously taken the opinion of a man whose biggest claim to fame is leading the Lions to an 0-16 record. Sorry, Clay.
What a magical year that was.
Sorry, Clay.
Yep.
I
saw it in person.
That wasn't meant to be a stray for you. You were just a casualty of war. Sorry about that. Did you see that? Were you there?
I went to Green Bay to see them play, and I think it was like week 8, and they got shut out 26-0. And I think they had 115 total yards, and I counted the kickoff returns in that total yard. That's how bad that was.
You were part of history.
I didn't want to miss it.
You were part of history. Good for you.
Thank you.
Did you get a blade of grass or anything?
Yeah, I think I did.
Steal anything?
I think I smoked it. Yeah. I think I needed to. Had a loss of appetite after that game.
Raider Sean says, every single take this bum has, it's like he's ran out of the back of the end zone like a moron again.
Oh!
Man, Orlovsky's just getting crushed.
Oh, these are great Raider and Lions memories, rather.
And this is a day later.
This is great.
The stuff I was reading in the moment was not kind either for Orlovsky. We're going to continue the reaction. Now we're number 2. Jason Fitz will...
Sorry.
We will break it down.
Break it down then.
Jason Fitz will be joining us, as well as Vinny Bonsignor from Birmingham, getting ready for Ty Simpson's Pro Day. What do we need to know? Next on the Tailgate.
Raider Nation, it's the dawn of a new era.
There have been plenty of other coaches, but why not us? Why not this staff? Why not this group of players? I look at it as what a great challenge. We're going to be about the work.
It's the trifecta for Bowers. His 3rd touchdown of the game. And the Raiders with a chance to win it.
And the Morning Tailgate is open with Vince Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignor, and Clay Baker on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
Flying through into hour number 2 here on the Morning Tailgate. It's Raider Nation Radio 920. Vince Sapienza, Clay Baker coming to you live from Las Vegas on a Tuesday, March 24th. Vinny Bonsignor joining us live from Birmingham, Alabama. Getting set for Ty Simpson's Pro Day, where it seems a lot more eyeballs going to be on Ty Simpson's Pro Day, along with the rest of the Crimson Tide contingent. That's tomorrow, on Wednesday. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN really stirred it up. And at some point, contrarian really is the greatest word for it, but it is as extreme contrarian as it gets in terms of this particular subject and this topic. And it's one of those things that if Dan Orlovsky believes Ty Simpson is QB1, then I guess good for Ty and good for Dan Orlovsky, right? Because nobody's happier hearing that than Ty Simpson himself, I would imagine.
Yeah, because nobody was really talking about Ty in laudatory terms like this.
At least in the same conversation as Fernando. Like, I think everybody agrees that it was Fernando, or it still is Fernando, and then another tier down, we'll call it level down, whatever verbiage you want to use, then it's Ty Simpson. But now Orlovsky's saying, no, not only is he on the same level, I'd take him. The caveat to what Orlovsky said, though, is he kind of backtracked, right? And Vinny, I'd love to get your take on this one, too, because this is what I kind of find fascinating. This is why, to me, it's easy to poke holes into what Dan Orlovsky is saying. As he sits there and he goes, look, he's my QB1. Greeny sits there and goes, all right, just to be clear, because this is going to create a reaction. This is what you're saying, he's better than Fernando. And then he kind of changes a little bit and says, I would rather have Ty Simpson at 15 or 16 in the draft comparison to Fernando 1 overall. So when he says that particular portion, he's no longer talking about who's better. He's talking about value, which to me is a different conversation, right? Like when you're saying who's better and what's the better value. Because when you're talking about value, you're not just comparing quarterback versus quarterback. You're comparing everybody that's in the draft. You're comparing him to Arvell Reese. You're comparing him to Caleb Downs. You're comparing him to Sonny Stott. You're comparing him to every single player in the draft. That's why you're talking about value of where you would take him. Like, Fernando's great at 1, but I'd rather have Ty Simpson at 15, 16 because of the price of a first overall pick. Your take on that, Vinny?
Well,
on that discrepancy, I should say.
Yeah, for anyone who watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High, when Spicoli and his buddy wrecked his buddy's older brother's, who happened to be a star football player, car, or excuse me, the dad's car. It was the older brother's car, and the friend said, "Man, my brother's gonna bleep," and then he stopped and he goes, "Man, my brother's gonna kill us." And Spicoli says, "Well, dude, make up your mind. Is he gonna bleep or is he gonna kill us?" And the brother said, "First he's gonna bleep, then he's gonna kill us." But make up your mind, Dan. Is he Is he your quarterback 1, or do you just feel like there's better value for Ty Simpson later on in the draft than Fernando with the first pick overall? But he clearly said to me, he said it. He's his quarterback 1, which indicates to me that if Dan Orlovsky was running a draft and it came down to Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson, he would take Ty Simpson, which is just, I'm sorry, but it's just crazy talk to me at this point. Maybe we're just at this time in the and like I said, if Dan's thoughts and opinion was shared by others, this would be a fair conversation to have. But he's literally a lone wolf on this, so it's hard to kind of figure out where exactly he's coming from for him to think that Ty Simpson is quarterback 1, which would mean better than Fernando Mendoza as a prospect. And there's nobody that I talk to, and I feel like I'm pretty tied in. There's nobody, and it's not just me. Just go across the board. There isn't anybody else that really shares that sentiment.
And again, that's why I find it hard to believe that he truly believes it. Now, I don't know Dan Orlovsky. I'm not going to pretend to know who he is, what he's thinking, things. Like I said, I respect him. I like his content, I love his analysis, especially in season, week to week, that kind of thing. Love it. Absolutely love it. But when you sit there and say, he's my QB1, and then you end it by saying, I would just rather have him at 15, 16 than Fernando at 1, I really struggle to believe that you believe Ty Simpson is better than Fernando Mendoza. That's the biggest thing. Now, obviously, that reaction has sparked a lot of ripple effect reaction. One Chris Canty on Unsportsmanlike Conduct, also with ESPN, said, if that is true, then all bets are off and every option for the Raiders should be on the table.
Whether or not you think Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza is the best quarterback prospect in his draft is subjective. But what Dan just pointed out tells me that there is no can't-miss quarterback prospect in this draft. And if that's the case, then the Las Vegas Raiders need to hold an auction for the number 1 overall pick. If you got a quarterback prospect, whether it's Mendoza or Ty Simpson, number 1 on your board, and it's debatable on whether or not you can mess this kid up, then you should probably consider trading down if there's a team that's willing to give you a king's ransom to move up to number one to take either one of them. Whether that ends up being the New York Jets or the Arizona Cardinals or the Cleveland Browns, these franchises that have multiple first-round picks, these franchises that are when it comes to being able to find a franchise guy, you should be auctioning that pick off.
And here we are. We have arrived at that time of year, gentlemen.
I love how these guys in their minds can compute it in a way where you're such a bad team and there's no definitive top quarterback, so says they, first of all. So therefore you should hold it for ransom and get a whole bunch of other picks, believing that on the other hand, even though there is no consensus top quarterback in your mind, somebody's going to pay a bunch of draft picks, which they would, by the way. But I'm just saying, if you on one hand, you're saying that there's no consensus quarterback, so auction it off because some other team will pay a whole bunch to come up and get it for that non-franchise caliber quarterback that you are talking about. You can't have it both ways. It doesn't work that way. If there's no consensus quarterback, one especially, then why would you think somebody would trade up for that quarterback? And if somebody did, doesn't that shoot holes in all of your arguments that there isn't a consensus top quarterback? And there would be. Trust me, the Raiders got plenty of calls on the first pick overall. Plenty of calls on the first pick overall, which is indicative of a quarterback that a lot of people think there's no can't-miss prospect. So I hate that term anyway. But there's plenty of belief in the league that this guy's floor is a Matt Ryan-ish, Kirk Cousins-ish, which is very good, by the way. That's his floor. That's what's considered his floor. And there's a lot of people that believe he has a ceiling. So if teams are like other bad teams, by the way, the Cleveland Browns are a bad football team. The Jets are worse off right now than the Raiders by a long shot, if you look at their rosters at this moment. Maybe not coming into the offseason, but at this moment, the Raiders look far better than the Jets do right now. And you're saying, yeah, they would give up a whole bunch. It just completely makes your argument moot because you can't have it both ways, is what I'm saying.
Ding, 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 ding. Vinny gets the prize. I just don't understand that logic in the slightest. So, okay, we're going to listen to Orlovsky and say Fernando has competition at minimum. At most, Ty Simpson's the guy. So let me do this. Hey, guys. I guess he's not QB1. So what are you going to give us for the first overall pick so you could take him? I don't understand that logic. I don't understand the selling point from the Raiders' end by that logic as well.
And it's a little late in the game because you've already hired Clint Kubiak, who's expected to go and help a young quarterback thrive. The whole direction of the team is now up in peril because a month out you've decided to change your mind. That's not right.
And the Raiders aren't doing that. This is just a couple of TV heads and radio heads just throwing stuff out there. But making it seem like, yeah, there's no quarterback. There's no top quarterback in this draft. Yet somebody's going to trade a whole bunch of stuff to go get that great quarterback. By the way, I'm saying that people would, because he is that good. But the Raiders understand how good he is, and so they're like, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. We're taking Fernando Mendoza. You can offer us all those first-round picks, which, by the way, they were off. There have been, overtures to that degree. But they know the value of Fernando Mendoza, and he's really good. I need to say this too for Raider fans that might now be looking at Alabama's pro day with anger rather than a sense of opportunity. Look, there's a bunch of other. First of all, none of this is Ty Simpson's fault. All right, and I believe he's going to have a nice career in the NFL. We'll see how it all plays out for him. But there's some other really good players as well. Caden Proctor, if you're thinking about a future tackle or maybe even a guard, he's a late first round, early second round pick. As an offensive lineman. LT Overton, the edge, who's a very consensus high second round pick, or somewhere in the second round range. Deontay Lawson, a linebacker who's projected to go in the second or third round. Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver, another second round, third round guy. There's a bunch of really good players that are going to be out there that could actually help the Raiders. So don't turn your nose up to it because one guy said that Dan Orlovsky said that he believes Ty Simpson is a better quarterback prospect than Fernando Mendoza. Just let that go in one ear out the other, and watch tomorrow to see some really good players that could actually help the Raiders at some point in the draft.
Think Jeremy Bernard wants to come back home to Vegas? You gonna talk to him, Vinny? You gonna talk to Bernard?
I'm gonna absolutely try to talk to him tomorrow. Yeah, and like I said, there's some ballers out here. The Raiders obviously don't need a center, but Parker Brailsford is another interior offensive lineman that's going to be picked probably on day 2 as well. Tim Keenan, an interior defensive lineman, probably more of a 4th-round pick. But I'm telling you, it's Alabama. I mean, you're going to have talent out there. So, watch it with a doubtful eye because there's some players out there that can help your team.
Just make sure you tell some bad stories about those kids so their value drops. And do your part, Vinny, is what I'm saying. Do your part. But Chris Canty also went on sportsmanlike conduct aside from the auction for the first overall pick, which again, as I saw, and not only some mentions of mine, but just reaction to the actual response was Raider Nation clearly didn't like it. Let's just put it that way. Canty also went on to talk about the common thread that we have seen so far this offseason in terms of the movement with trades and what he thinks that means for the viewings and perception of this draft.
Because if you're the Raiders, you understand that this is a multi-year rebuild that you are about to undergo with your new head coach, Clint Kubiak. And the best thing that you can do is stockpile picks so you can acquire top-tier talent. And what the NFL has told us, with the volume of trades that we've seen in the first month of the new league year, is that they don't feel great about this year's draft. Mm-hmm. We've had 19 trades since this offseason. 19 trades, which is 3 more than any other offseason before the draft, and we still have a month to go before teams are on the clock. So you're having that level of veteran player movement because teams are trying to aggressively fulfill needs by throwing money at the problem and draft picks at the problem in order to get players that they can rely on in 2026 because they're not sure about what's coming out of the collegiate ranks. So if you're putting all of these things together, it's pointing to the Las Vegas Raiders needing to make the decision to trade down and trade out of that number 1 overall pick.
All right, so that's Chris Canty on Unsportsmanlike Conduct of ESPN. So it's an interesting point he raises. Are the trades that we've seen this offseason a byproduct of how the NFL draft coming up is viewed by NFL front offices? Or, and this is kind of where I would lean a little bit more, is this simply GMs just trying to be aggressive and saying, hey, we're not too far off. Let's get a guy that can help us now?
Well, to answer that question is, so in a bad draft, as Chris is trying to insinuate, in a bad draft, teams are giving up good players for draft picks in that bad draft. Is that what he's saying? I mean, that's, again, you can't have it both ways. How about it's just, there's teams like you just said that are on the cusp and are offering, draft picks that other teams are saying there's value in those draft picks. So I'm going to trade my established player because I like this draft enough to go get the draft picks and give up the player to get them. So it's not one or the other. It's not a bad draft, and therefore teams are going and getting established players because they don't like what's in the draft. Now, there are some times where, like, if you're Les Snead, of course, Trent McDuffie is right now a better player than anyone you're going to get with the 26th pick in the first round. Trent McDuffie his general manager literally told me this is a rare player right here. And so, yeah, they were willing to give up that first-round pick, but the Kansas City Chiefs were willing to say, okay, we'll take that first-round pick because we see the value in the first pick, even if it means trading away a really good Pro Bowl level, All-Pro level cornerback. So, again, you can't have it both ways. How are you telling me that this is a bad draft when the Kansas City Chiefs are trading a really good player for a first pick in that quote-unquote bad draft?
Yeah, and also saying, hey, if you're a team that needs personnel and you need as many players, best possible players as possible, well, get more picks into this bad draft and build it that way. It's like, yeah, go into this pool of this very mediocre draft and build your team through that. No, don't just put it all on one pick. So it's like there's a major contradiction of how everyone's looking at their opinions to begin with, and then by the time they finish their comments, they've completely made a major conflict on their own beliefs.
Well, the other part of it, yes, exactly. To me, Chris and Dan are months late on this. This is a conversation you think about, before all of this process, because this process, including the playoffs, we talked about how important those playoffs were. There was always a conversation to be had. Do you hold on to it or do you trade it? But as the draft process has gone on and everyone's gone and watched the tape and rewatched the tape and assessed what Fernando Mendoza did, the 99.9% of the world, including everybody in the football world, believes, no, the Raiders should hold on to that pick because Fernando is that good of a quarterback prospect, and that's what they've been looking for decades now, not just a couple of years, decades. The Raiders have been looking for that franchise-caliber quarterback, with all due respect to Derek Carr, who turned out to be a great second-round pick, but he was never looked at coming into a draft the way Fernando Mendoza is being looked at in this draft as the top player in the draft, the top quarterback in a draft. He was further down the road, Derek Carr was, and turned out to be a really good player, but not the great player that you need to be, to win Super Bowls and to compete year in and year out for playoff berths. Fernando is being looked at like that throughout the NFL, and so it really defies kind of what these guys are talking about. And the notion at this hour, that they're actually bringing up a subject that was put to bed months ago by the Raiders, is just it feels like you're a day late and $1 short, and you're just not truly paying attention.
So, obviously listening to Canty's take yesterday, I again, and take the Fernando part of it out in terms of drafting one overall, because I agree with you. I feel like it's trying to have your cake and eat it too. Oh, it's not a good draft, so let's get a bunch of draft picks that, even though the draft's not that good. So my thought process was, okay, is this because franchises view this draft as not so great, so they're just willing to trade the draft picks for known commodities, or is there something else going on? And when I took a look at all the trades that have taken place this offseason, just take a listen to the names that have been traded, all right? Justin Fields, Jalen Waddle, Tavondre Sweat, DJ Moore, Garrett Bradbury, Zaire Franklin, Teron Johnson, Rashawn Gary, Michael Pittman, Trent McDuffie, David Montgomery, Minka Fitzpatrick, and Osa Odigizua.
What?
Those are names. Those aren't just guys in the league. Those aren't just serviceable backups or depth players or role players. Those are all bona fide starters, Pro Bowlers, former All-Pros. So when he sits there and he says, look at all the trades, they don't value the draft. That couldn't be further from the truth. Look at who's being traded. These are big-time trades. Teams are going out and getting starters. They are giving up draft capital to get these starters, and in return, the teams are giving up Pro Bowl, All-Pro type caliber starters because they believe, whether it's the product of their own situation, they're in the gutter, or they really value the draft picks that are in return. So I completely disagree with his premise of saying, of the root of his foundation of like, well, the Raiders just need to auction it off because the draft's no good. In fact, the draft is really good, and it starts at the top with the first overall in Fernando.
Yeah, it's what it is it's kind of it's an unusual draft in that you don't have the premium position players way up in the draft, but you have some really good football players. And furthermore, I'm completely in agreement with you, Vince. This isn't because teams like the Rams or the Bills feel like this is a bad draft, so we're going to just go ahead and trade our first round. They're selectively looking at what do we need to get us over the top, and the quickest way to do that in our eyes is to go get a player that we need at that particular position. The Rams needed cornerbacks, and they went and completely overhauled their cornerback room, turning it from a weakness into a strength, not just with McDuffie, but then signing Jalen Watson in free agency. So the Buffalo Bills went out and got their wide receiver, right? And the Houston Texans go out and get their running back. And like you said, it's kind of a byproduct. The Miami Dolphins are just selling off pieces right now. It's an auction there because they're trying to rebuild and reset. So they're giving up all their players, good, bad, and indifferent, and trying to get as much as they possibly can. And other teams like the Denver Broncos who say, man, we need an explosive wide receiver. Let's give up our coveted first-round pick, which we love, for a player that we love right now and has already proven that he can play. And the Miami Dolphins are okay with that, getting that first-round pick this year in exchange for that. And not to mention, future considerations. So, yeah, look, we are in a different time when it comes to general managers who are way more open now to trading first-round picks and high draft picks for proven players. Les Snead's kind of been leading the charge on that and showing people how it can be done and why it's not you're not mortgaging your future, especially when you know and have confidence in your ability to go use the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh rounds and undrafted free agency to also draft really good players. It's not just about the first round. So I think you're getting more of a cutting edge, newer way of looking at these things from the general manager's perspective, who are more willing to give up first-round picks in exchange for proven players. And you also have general managers who are more okay now, with giving up good proven players for first-round picks and high draft picks. So it's just kind of the way the NFL is going. It's not indicative of what people think of this draft.
The Ravens loved their draft pick so much that they had a doctor make sure he didn't like a medical report. That's, again, a little bit of sarcasm, but yeah. 702-365-9200. Vinny in Birmingham. You eating good over there, Vinny? Getting some good comfort food?
By the way, I got to say this. I did have some good barbecue last night, but I got to say this, and I texted our good friend Levi Edwards. I'm literally a half a mile away from Stanford University, which is where he went here in Homewood. It's actually kind of a suburb of Birmingham. It's called Homewood. I got to tell you, and I texted Levi. He will verify this yesterday. It's a beautiful area here, man. It is so beautiful, so quaint here in this part of Alabama. I've only been to Mobile, so I've never been on this side of the state or this part of the state, and it's gorgeous out here, man. So if you ever get a chance to come to Birmingham, check out Stanford University. UAB is right up the road as well. Today I'm getting in a car driving to Tuscaloosa for the first time ever. Checking out the University of Alabama, so I can't wait. But yeah, so far so good.
Make sure you follow along with Vinny on his travels to Tuscaloosa and the pro day for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I have Vinny Bonsignor on the X. Vinny, we will touch base with you at some point.
Absolutely.
Whatever our schedule is. What's today?
My phone is open. What's that?
I said, what's today? Oh, Tuesday. Okay, we'll figure it out.
Today is Tuesday, yep.
Vinny Bonsignor, we appreciate you. Coming up next, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, will be joining us here on the Morning Tailgate. It's Raider Nation Radio, 920.
It's a Tuesday on the Morning Tailgate. That means it's time to check in with Raider Nation's Grammy winner, Jason Fitz, on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
Oh, it's a keeper! And just like that, powering his way into the end zone like he's meeting his friends at Chili's for a triple dipper. That's a big touchdown.
Woo! Jason Fitz. Yahoo Sports, the new standard for broadcasting in the Indoor Football League. Fitzy, I didn't know you were a Chili's man, let alone a triple dipper.
I'm not just a Chili's man. I'm a Chili's stan. I am a Chili's fanatic. Let me tell you, the guiltless grills, guiltless sirloin, low in calories, high in protein. Like even when I'm eating my cleanest, it comes with a little side of asparagus on it.
Side of broccoli.
It is a delight. I'm all in on chili. Like I'm not just a Chili's fan. Like I've worked that in intentionally because I love chili. I'm going to angle in a Chili's reference every weekend until I get a dang Chili's endorsement out of this.
I was just about to ask: is this a Cheez-Its? Is this a Cheez-Its deal where you're being sponsored right now because you're doing a hell of a job? And if you don't have one by now, then Chili's is really losing out on a lot.
No. I'm going to get Chili's. And Chili's ain't no deal yet, but we're going to, you blink, we're going to get one. And then I'm going after Dave and Buster's next. Like, I'm going to start hitting all the places. Like, I'll talk to you guys before my first Vegas game. We'll figure out what place in Vegas we want to give a little love to. Like, I'm going to work in everything I possibly can until we start getting some endorsement deals out of these things. I am not above it.
Jason Fitz going to be booking 2 tickets to the Fountain Blue in the end zone. There we go. Got to get the Fountain Blue Hall of Excellence. It all goes into one another.
There's a lot here.
Fitz, speaking of a lot, boy, Raider Nation got sent into a tiz. It was supposed to be just a nice, normal Monday yesterday. And then Dan Orlovsky has to go and say what he says. Ty Simpson is his QB1. I know you understand the game that is the NFL draft, the hype machine that is necessary to create the excitement that is necessary for the views and the TV aspect. I know you understand all of that. I'm curious your reaction when you heard or found out that one person, seemingly, believes not only is there somebody on Fernando's level, but there's somebody that has surpassed Fernando in one Ty Simpson.
Look, so Dan's a buddy, and Dan's a good friend. And I text Dan, and he texted me back right away. In fact, I'm working on getting Dan on my Yahoo show so we can talk about this on air. I want to be really clear to everybody, and I'm going to be abundantly honest in a way that many people will not. I see all the conspiracy theorists that they're out there. Oh, but look at Tannenbaum's agent and Dan's agent are both CAA, and that's the same for Ty Simpson. Like, y'all, number one, I've worked with Mike and Dan. Number two, I know them both very personally. Number three, I have a bunch of friends that are rep by CAA. I cannot say this loud enough. Your conspiracy theory has no actual value. It is not real. I have an agent, not CAA, but I know many people with CAA. This is just blown up for people that love to turn this into something. And, unfortunately, you can convince a conspiracy theorist of any other conspiracy theory, but you can never convince them of the truth. And I realize many of the people listening that have bought into this are simply not going to believe me. But as somebody that worked at ESPN, as somebody that has an agent, as somebody that has had multiple agents in my career, as somebody that knows people rep by CAA, I don't know a single person that's ever been told to have a take on a player because of their agent. A single one, across the board. And the guys that I've talked to laugh at it. Orlovsky texted me when I texted him yesterday about this. He genuinely believes, as hard as this is for everybody listening to believe, Orlovsky believes Ty Simpson is a better quarterback. To which I say, guys, who cares? At the end of the day, I don't like pie. Everybody knows that. Everybody makes fun of that. In fact, I hate pie. I am such a lover of desserts. Very true story. When I was in a band that nobody ever heard of, that never really made it, we spent a summer as Clay knows opening for Kenny Rogers. I've told him many stories of this.
Great stuff.
One of the things that year opening for Kenny, we were playing all casinos. That year, every summer, I made it my goal to have one of every dessert offered at every casino buffet, and I met my goal. That's how much I like desserts. I was eating 20 desserts a day. It's a miracle I wasn't 400 pounds, right? So I love desserts. I even had some of the pie, but I hate pie, and that's okay. If we walk in to a dessert and you ask me to draft my favorite desserts, I'm going to pick cake. I'm going to pick ice cream. I'm not going to pick pie, right? That doesn't mean that suddenly I have an agenda. It doesn't mean anybody's talking to me some kind of way. It just means that I prefer something else. Dan, as shocking as this is to the world, prefers a different quarterback. Dan also loved Anthony Richardson for all of his traits. Dan doesn't have the same concern that some people have about guys that haven't played a lot of college football. He doesn't share that. And again, even if you don't like my dessert analogy, I will tell you, as you guys introduce me every week, is, having a Grammy, right? If you sit down with 10 people and you ask him who the best guitar player of all time is, they're going to have different answers. Like Dan prefers Ty Simpson, and Mike Tannenbaum does talk to people at teams all over the place. He's obviously talked to people that prefer Ty Simpson. They're allowed to have differing opinions. It doesn't mean that there's some great agenda against the Raiders or a great agenda for Ty Simpson or an agenda against Fernando Mendoza. That's all just crap. And frankly, like, I'm stunned that Raiders fans, the group of people that pride ourselves on walking into games wearing spiked shoulder pads and intimidating, are so sensitive that everybody's up here just, oh my God, they don't like our quarterback. Who cares? Like, I wasn't surprised last year when Titans fans felt the same way about Cam Ward. And believe me, it happened. I wasn't surprised a couple of years before that when Bears fans were angry about the fact that Caleb Williams wasn't either getting enough love or people were implying Caleb would want to play somewhere else. Like, the team with the first pick in the draft every year gets to be part of these stories that they don't like. And for some reason, Raiders fans just haven't noticed it. And now they're all taking it like it's some personal vendetta. Like, y'all, at the end of the day, grow up. Who cares if somebody likes or doesn't like your quarterback? Let him get drafted. Let him come in. If he's successful, nobody will give a damn about what Dan Orlovsky thought. If he's not successful, nobody will give a damn about what Dan Orlovsky thought on it. Either way, your joy as a Raiders fan is not going to come from anything anybody has to say. Getting positive words of affirmation, like, if you need that, you're a fan of the wrong team. Like, bad teams don't get positive affirmation. So if you need a compliment sandwich for your quarterback, that's a you issue, not an analyst issue. Analysts can have different opinions, and it doesn't matter. Teams can have different opinions. It doesn't matter. All that matters is Thursday night one of the draft. I believe it is 100% certain that the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza. And when that happens, for the next 3 years, nobody's going to know whether it was the right pick or the wrong pick until we get body of work, true evidence, and then when it's all said and done, Orlovsky's opinions will just be something that, frankly, don't matter.
And I think for Raider Nation, it makes just to have like a divisive thought out there, it almost kind of brings in like a little bit of a frightening thought of like, did we totally assess Mendoza correctly? Is there something that we're missing? Did we get caught up in the hoopla that we overlook some skills that translate to the NFL in a better mode that Simpson brings, Mendoza doesn't?
No, I don't think so. There are concerns I have. I mean, Mendoza's bigger. I don't like the size of Ty Simpson. And I know everybody says, well, Ty was injured at the end of last year. That's why he didn't play particularly well. Well, I then wonder, is his size part of the reason he was injured? Also, I saw everything I needed to see from Fernando. Like, this isn't really about, like, I'm not that mean that's, like, holding my girl's hand but twisting my head to the other girl. I'm not even looking at Tyson. Sure. My question is Fernando Mendoza the quarterback that I think we need? I do. I think Fernando Mendoza is that guy. And look, could we be wrong? Yeah. Like, that happens all the dang time. Like, all the time. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be transcendent, otherworldly as a quarterback. He's been okay. Like, Patrick Mahomes wasn't the first overall pick in his own draft because drafting quarterbacks is an inexact science. Could we all be wrong? Yeah. Could we have done the research wrong? Maybe. But, like, right now, today, do I think that the Raiders are looking at Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson and thinking, oh, I don't know, guys. No, I don't. I think the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza, and I don't think it's particularly even close. I think he's shown the toughness. I think he's shown the ability. I think he's shown the growth in his time from Cal over to his time in Indiana. I think he did a better job of processing in Indiana. I think that he's an absolute student of the game. I don't think he's just a quarterback. I think he's defined by being a quarterback. I think he loves football. I think he's ready to take a bunch of violent hits. I think he's accepting this challenge. I think all of those intangibles you want, make a pros and cons list. I don't see a lot of cons for Fernando Mendoza. Now, you know, how good does he have to be for everybody to be happy? I don't know. Like, I see people get the comp to Jared Goff, and they're like, oh, I don't want to draft Jared Goff, really? Mm-hmm. Because Jared Goff been pretty damn good. Like, so, you know, if we're looking for Fernando Mendoza to be a Hall of Famer, chances are he probably isn't. Guess what? That's usually the way it doesn't work, right? Like, more often than not, again, as I pointed out countless times, the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, Joe Burrow was a first overall pick, so put him off to the side. Josh Allen, not a first overall pick. Patrick Mahomes, not a first overall pick. Lamar Jackson, 2-time, could have been 3-time MVP, not a first overall pick. So, like, People get it wrong every year. Maybe the Raiders got it wrong. Maybe the Raiders got it right. But, like, number one, if we get it right, do we really care about going to talk our talk 3 years from now? Who cares, right? And if we get it wrong, we don't want to be owned by Orlovsky week in and week out. So, like, I guess my thing is, like, just own what we're going to own. We're picking the kid. So, like, at this point, it doesn't really matter.
I got to say, your description of that meme was flawless.
Yeah, that was great.
Well done. Everybody knew exactly what you were talking about as soon as you said it. That's why the IFL tabbed you, Fitzy. That's why. That alone. Fitzy, last one from me. Put the fan hat on for a second for the silver and black. How different, as we sit less than a month away from the draft, does just being a member of Raider Nation feel compared to years past?
It's the biggest drug that we all have as football fans is the drug of hope, right? And that's what the offseason brings every year. It brings hope at different levels every year. The thing that having the first overall pick brings this year is tremendous hope. I would ask every single Raiders fan right now, how do you think it feels to be a Jets fan today? And it's amazing to me that 4 teams finished 3-14, and by way of a tiebreaker, we end up where we are right now, right? So we have the first pick in the draft. How different would every single one of us feel today, right now, if instead we had the second overall pick of the draft, a clear path to what I think could be a great player. There are several players available, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are going to be difference makers, but not a quarterback. Like, imagine being a Jets fan today that now has to look around and say, man, we didn't really figure out the quarterback. We don't have a path to the quarterback. And our best case scenario is that we go through another heartbreaking season, and we hope that this time we lose enough games to actually get the first overall pick, or we hope that next year there's 2 or 3 quarterbacks we absolutely love and somehow we get to the top of them. Like, that's wild. What a difference we all feel because we have a shot at a quarterback. And I know that that's why, to go back to the previous question, we're sensitive about what people have to say about Fernando because we've already bought in. We already want to find that level of hope. But to me, I think when you start looking around and say, man, if you get it right, and by the way, in clarity, in texting Dan, one thing he did say yesterday is he believes Fernando Mendoza is going to be a really good player. Like, he's not, none of this is him saying, and I told him, as I said to Dan, look, the only 2 quarterbacks I've seen in my lifetime that really played sustainably worth a damn was Rich Gannon and Derek Carr. Like, that's all he's got to do is be better than Gannon and Carr, and all of a sudden we'll be looking at the best quarterback we've seen in our lives, right? And so, one thing that Dan stresses, he thinks Fernando Mendoza is going to be a really good quarterback. So all of this to say, I think when you have a path, you believe to a quarterback, it just gives you a different level of hope. I think they got a really, really good coaching hire. I think they built a really, really good staff. I think they spent money smartly this offseason. And I think with the first overall pick in the draft, there's a chance to take a leap forward. I don't think the Raiders are going to the playoffs next year necessarily as we sit right now. But I think that it feels like there's a true path to a sustainable, successful franchise right now. And that, a year ago, we were answering questions of, well, how are they going to sustain this given the age and given the concept and what they're doing with Pete Carroll? None of that's here now. Like, none of those questions. Like, I understand the rebuild, I understand the process, and I understand the hope. And that's why I feel different about this team. That's why, frankly, I can't wait for the first night of the draft because I just want to party with Raiders fans that understand, hey, at least for right now, until we see him on the field, until we're proven otherwise, got to feel like maybe we got our guy. And if you got your guy, you're set for the next 12 to 15 years at that position. All of a sudden, the way you see your football team for a generation changes.
Oh, we absolutely love your work on the Indoor Football League. You make it exciting. You make it fun. I can't wait to see who the next booth buddies are for you. And I have a feeling Randy Macho Man Savage is a mainstay. But I'm glad you keep us in mind every Tuesday because you bring us so much, Jason.
Is he going to take us to Chili's when he gets here? He said when you're in Vegas, you should have that sponsorship. That means we'll be hungry.
Right.
I'll hit Chili's up and we'll figure out how to get it. Like, we're going to make Chili's pay for it, but yes, we're on it.
Obviously.
Oh, fajitas and chicken enchilada soup. Here we come. Thank you so much, Jason. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you.
Oh, that was good stuff. Fitzy crushed it. Fitzy crushed it. We'll continue to react here on the Morning Tailgate, Raider Nation Radio 920. Welcome back inside the tailgate. 702-365-9200 is the number. Is there anything Ty Simpson could do during his pro day that would give you any pause that, hey, maybe Orlovsky is on to something here? The resounding answer via the text line is no. As we just heard from Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports, who is friends with Dan Orlovsky, texting back and forth after the storm that he caused and said, hey, everyone can have their opinion. He's an analyst. That's what he's supposed to do. And when we asked Fitz, we say, hey, do you agree? He goes, absolutely not. So differing opinions are okay. Blackbeard in Iowa says, hot take. Simpson will not be drafted by the Jets, Cardinals, Dolphins, or Browns at all during the draft. Whatever round. They do not want to be tied to Simpson as their franchise quarterback with the supposedly historic quarterback class of 27. So Blackbeard is not only saying not only is he not better than Fernando, the quarterback-needy teams will not take him because of what is looming on the other side in 2027. Raider Moyo, if Ty Simpson is so good, why didn't he win the Heisman? Why wasn't he in the championship game? I wouldn't take Dano's word at all, especially from a quarterback that's known for being on the Pat McAfee show and committed a safety thinking he was in bounds. All right.
Boom.
Another stray for Clay. Were you at that game?
No, but I watched it intently. It was wonderful. Man, there's so many great moments from that year.
Do you remember your reaction watching that live?
Yeah.
What went through your mind as Dano dropped back, rolled out?
He fist pumped. And I'm like, you're a safety. You ran out of the end zone. It's a safety. He was fist pumping. Like, he was like, save the day.
Like a pump fake with the ball, right?
No, he jutted his right hand up in the air like, yeah. And there's a great still shot of that as the guy, the referee behind him in the end zone is making that triangle move with his hands, meaning a safety. Oh.
Imagine
And Rod Marinelli was the head coach. He was going to choke slam Orlovsky in that game. Just give him a diamond cutter in the middle of the field.
Oh boy. Sorry to bring up.
No, it's good. It's fun to laugh now.
You have to laugh through the tears, right?
It's over now. Yes.
Is it though?
The crying is
feels
over.
Like it's still happening. Coming up, hour number 3, Ryan McFadden, Dan Orlovsky's colleague at ESPN. He's gonna have to answer for Orlovsky's sins to kick off hour number 3 here on the Morning Tailgate, Raider Nation Radio 920.
The food is cooking, the drinks are on ice, so settle in with Vince Sapienza, Vinny Bonsignor, and Clay Baker on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
Hour number 3 here on the Morning Tailgate. It's Raider Nation Radio 920, the flagship for the Silver and Black. Vince Sapienza, Clay Baker, coming to you live from Las Vegas on a Tuesday, March 24th. We've been talking about Dan Orlovsky, who's been talking about Ty Simpson, who has a pro day in Tuscaloosa tomorrow. Our own Vinny Bonsignor in Alabama this week. We'll be at said pro day and we'll be able to give us all the news and notes that we need, not only from Ty Simpson, but the rest of the Crimson Tide contingent as well. But the topic of the day, is there anything that Ty Simpson can do at the pro day that would give you pause or any credence to what Orlovsky says that he might be QB1 above Fernando Mendoza? Even saying it out loud, I don't like the way it feels, Clay. I don't like the way it sounds as I say it out loud.
Yeah, it feels wrong when you say those words put together.
Doesn't feel great. And I can imagine why Raider Nation reacted the way they did all day yesterday. So to get some answers on the situation is a colleague of Dan Orlovsky, ESPN's own Ryan McFadden. Ryan, you're going to have to answer for the sins of one Dano. When you heard his comments about Ty Simpson is his QB1, your reaction was what?
Oh, well, I look at it as this. Even though that's a stance, and kind of like part of it where he says, like, you know, there's sort of moments during the season in which Ty Simpson looked like better than Fernando Mendoza, but just how Fernando ended the season so strong and
and his work in the college football playoffs was just exceptional. I don't see why Fernando wouldn't be QB1 in this year's draft. I think at this point it's a no-brainer. It's a situation where the Raiders will not think twice in making this decision at all. Listen, I think, the Raiders kind of made it clear that this is the direction they're going to go when during the national championship you have the entire ownership group as well as general manager John Spicek, scouts, and other members in the front office were in attendance for that game. And to me, that's a sign there that's a sign there that they're all in on, bringing in Fernando Mendoza as their QB1. And I think, we're going to get talks like this throughout the draft process. And, that's how it's always been. But at the same time, we just got to look at where we are. And, and the fact is that I think Fernando Mendoza will be a Raider, and that's the expectations. That's the expectations internally in the building. And just if you watch the tape, it's still clear cut that to me Fernando Mendoza is the top quarterback in this draft, and the Raiders shouldn't think twice in making this decision.
The critique that Orlovsky had on Mendoza was two-part. One was that he takes his eyes off the receivers too quickly and puts his head down and starts running. And number two, that he doesn't, in comparison to Ty Simpson, doesn't make the layered throws that Ty does, which is so successful in the NFL. Do you see that in the footage?
A little bit, but no. It's just when I look at Fernando Mendoza, the thing that stands out to me is just one is like he's exceptional in the red zone. He's very tough. He's accurate. And I think this is someone like, when you look at comparisons, when you hear comparisons of like a Jared Goff or Sam Bradford when he was from back in the day, like those are reasonable comparisons. And let's be real. If Fernando Mendoza has like a Jared Goff type of career, who in Las Vegas would hate that? Like Jared Goff is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. He has helped, turn the Detroit Lions around, helped the Rams make a Super Bowl appearance before he got traded away. So if, I don't look at Fernando Mendoza as like a polarizing prospect, like someone who some people would consider generational. But if you're talking about someone who I think has the potential to have a Jared Goff type of career, I think he has that. And I think, if you build around him, continue to strengthen the offensive line, get playmakers around him, he's going to have a solid career in Las Vegas.
We're talking to Ryan McFadden of ESPN. Follow him on the X at Ryan McFadden _. Ryan, something we really didn't get to dive into deeply I'd like to do now is Tyler Linderbaum. Obviously, he was the headline day one of free agency, right? But by the time we got to talk to you, there was a whole bevy of new Raiders to talk to. So I'm curious, when you look at the signing of Tyler Linderbaum, I think everybody's eyes go to Ashton Genty in terms of, oh, man, that's a big boost. But who do you think reaps the rewards the most from Tyler Linderbaum on the Raiders offense?
To me, I think it goes to it's two. I think it's Fernando Mendoza coming in. Like, you're going to have an experienced center, a 3-time Pro Bowl center that you get a chance to work with, who's had experience working with one of the best quarterbacks in the league in terms of Lamar Jackson. And then you have to go back to Ashton Genty. I think when you look at this, how important it is for the center in this West Coast offense, and how important it is for Clint Kubiak to get the run game going. And there's no better interior lineman. One of the better interior linemen in terms of run blocking is Tyler Linderbaum. So I think someone like Ashton Genty is just going to benefit immensely from that. And another element to this too, I'll give you a third player, is Jackson Powers-Johnson. For the first 2 years of Jackson Powers-Johnson's career, he spends the offseason, am I playing center or am I playing guard? Am I playing center or am I playing guard? He doesn't know what direction the coach staff is going to take. Now he's going to go into this offseason knowing, okay, I'm going to be a guard. I can continue to improve my level of play and focus my training on being a guard. So I think when you look at guys who will benefit from that, obviously it's Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Genty, but at the same time also Jackson Powers-Johnson.
And there's obviously plenty of work to do. We'll see what, that first starting 5 in training camp looks like for the Raiders offensive line. but does a Tyler Linderbaum in the fold make you more comfortable with just throwing Caleb Rogers in there from the get-go, or any of the young guys on that offensive line because of his caliber? Or do you still need to see growth before you give a Caleb Rogers the reins to one of those spots?
I'm optimistic. I would still have to see growth, but I'm optimistic. I thought Caleb Rogers played pretty solid during the short time he got some playing time down the stretch of the season. I think, like I said, I think, having Tyler Linderbaum in the mix, and then you're bringing back Jackson Powers-Johnson from an injury, Colton Miller from an injury. The offensive line looks a bit better compared to it was last season. So yeah, I'm a little bit optimistic, but at the same time, you just want to give Caleb Rogers to solidify him as your starting, your starting guard right away. So I would like to see more competition there and see how it plays out during training camp.
When you sign a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, it sets a standard of how you really want to take a look at this offensive line, especially with a new set of eyes like Clint Kubiak has. But, if you're coming off a year where you win 3 games and you're one of the worst offensive lines in recent memory, one guy is not going to improve the whole rest of the group. All right, so they also signed a guard and a fullback, Connor Hayward, but don't you feel like there's more to come, and shouldn't there be? Because one guy is not going to do all the difference.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And at the same time, you got to understand we have to make this clear that this is still a rebuild. Despite the bringing Max back and all the money that they spent on Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Linderbaum, we're still in the midst of a rebuild. So this could, when you look at the offensive line situation, it could be something where they address it through the draft, or if they don't address it through the draft, it's maybe something we see get addressed next offseason. Whether that's next offseason they go out and bring a franchise right tackle or another guard that they feel like they can continue to build with the guys they have already on the roster. So yeah, I don't think it's the offensive line is set in stone. I don't think it should be, given how important that position is. But at the same time, I think we still have to preach patience here and not expect everything to happen overnight or happen in just one off season. I think it's still going to take time, but I think they're making a lot more. They're in a much better spot than they were last season, not just from a talent standpoint, but in terms of coaching as well.
Ryan McFadden joining us here on the Morning Tailgate. I want to get your take on the DB room in general. I feel like we have not discussed that a ton this offseason. Obviously, the trade for Teron Johnson, shores up that nickel, but have the Raiders done enough in the DB room this offseason?
No, I would like to see. I like to see another safety. Isaiah Polamalu, I thought was pretty inconsistent throughout most of the year. Then he dealt with it. He had an injury that sidelined him for the rest of the way. But I still like to get add another safety. I wouldn't mind seeing another outside cornerback as well. And you already locked up Eric Stokes, and that was much deserving. But are we in a position right now that we can say, hey, Darian Porter is our guy moving forward? Maybe he is. He flashed a little bit. He flashed a little bit last year as a rookie. In the times he got playing time, and then we was able to start in place of Kaigu Kelly. But you would still like to add some competition there. So I like Teron Johnson in the slot. I think that's a major upgrade there. But I would like to see. I don't think they're done. I think the key moving forward, like I said, whether it's through the draft, maybe in a trade or whatnot, to them at least add another outside cornerback and a safety.
Could you ever foresee them going back into free agency and maybe finding just a more convenient and maybe team friendly deal with somebody like Trayvon Diggs, who's out there and has had injuries in the past?
If it's not, I wouldn't be surprised they entertain the idea of bringing in a free agent, like a veteran free agent who maybe people has written off, whether it's for injuries or maybe had a down year, and see if he can turn things around. I can see that possibly. Do they see a scenario in which they can find what happened with Eric Stokes, where this guy dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. And then he comes to Las Vegas, gets healthy, and boom, he locked himself to a long-term deal here. So I wouldn't be now. Is it someone like Trayvon Diggs in particular? I'm not sure. I think Marshall Lattimore is still out there. Trey, like you said, L'Jarius Seed out there. I guess at the same time you got to look at the Raiders cap situation as well. Do you want to, and how much are they going to be demanding for? But it wouldn't hurt to entertain it. To get, like I said, to get as much depth as possible in the cornerback room. Because right now, when you look at the depth, you have Eric Stokes and you have Darian Porter and then DeCamerion Richardson. So yeah, and then you have your nickels and Teron Johnson and Greedy Vance. So yeah, you'll like to add more help there.
Are there any other names out there on the free agent market that the Raiders should be circling around? Because that first wave of free agent clearly done. I don't even know if you can call a second wave happened, but it feels like we're now in the waiting period for these vets, 1 year kind of prove it deals. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
I think right now, I think there's two positions I wouldn't be surprised they try to bring in veteran help for. I think one is bringing in a veteran backup quarterback. So I think we look at, because right now the only quarterback on the roster until the draft comes is Aiden O'Connell. So I'm anticipating the Raiders to bring in a veteran quarterback at some point. I think someone like a Joe Flacco makes sense. I think Kirk Cousins make a lot of sense. Because when you're looking at a situation where my expectations for Fernando Mendoza is your week one starter. At the same time, if there's something comes up and you have to backtrack that plan, I think having, let's say if Kirk Cousins in the building, I'm a little bit more confident in him starting a few games until Fernando Mendoza is ready. If that situation comes about, and if it doesn't, and Fernando Mendoza is your guy, I like Kirk Cousins I think he'd be a good mentor for Mendoza, and I think having him in the building, or even like a Joe Flacco to mentor Mendoza, help him out a little bit. I think that'd be cool. That'd be good. But Kirk Cousins in particular, because he does have familiarity with Clint Kubiak. So I think having much people around around Fernando, who has had experience with the head coach and the system, that'll be perfect for him. And I think also too, at the same time, it goes back to, like I said, if Mendoza is not ready for week one, you have a quarterback who has also played under Clint Kubiak in the past that understands his system and what he likes to do, has worked with him in the past, and that would help. I think that would be very beneficial for the Raiders.
Chris Canty was on Unsportsmanlike yesterday, made a comment saying that the reason why teams and general managers have been trading so much in this offseason is because they do not believe in the wealth of talent in the draft. Do you feel that way? And is that the reason why so many teams have been trading in this offseason?
Yes, I think to some degree, yes. This is not a you have some talent there, but when you look at this draft class, it's not a draft class where there's a lot of you look at it and there's a lot of big name prospects from outside of the first round of the draft. So yeah, I can see why they're doing that. At the same time, it's you got teams trading for guys hoping to capitalize on the window of opportunity to get to the playoffs and reach the Super Bowl as well.
He's Ryan McFadden of ESPN. Follow him on the X at Ryan McFadden _. Ryan, we appreciate you. Hey, how's your bracket these days? I meant to ask you that.
Arizona's still in it, so I have Arizona winning the title in one of my brackets, so it's still alive to some degree.
Yeah, but that's the good. I want to hear the bad. Who was your bad beats?
Who was my bad one? Oh, UVA. UVA.
They didn't give you a chance.
The UVA always, for some reason, anytime UVA is in a tournament, outside of 1 year they won a title, they always let me down. And Gonzaga. So Gonzaga was another team.
Yeah, that was a doozy.
But seeing Texas, I was out there in Portland, so seeing Texas up close, I saw Texas in their first game against BYU. I was like, man, I think I made a mistake because So yeah, that Texas. If I would have known, I think I would have picked Texas because I watched Texas beat BYU and AJ DeBonza did his thing, but they controlled the tempo of that game that whole first round, the whole time. So I'm watching it, and then someone next to me on the press table said, "Hey Ryan, who do you think is going to win the game?" I said, "Who do you think is going to win, Gonzaga or Texas?" I said Texas. I was mad because he had Gonzaga advancing. So, but yeah, so that hurt me. That hurt me big time. And so yeah, all the games I covered pretty much hurt me. Texas, I think I had Wisconsin being High Point. So yeah, only thing is I did all my brackets I made. I did have Utah State beating Villanova because I'm a Maryland alum.
Yeah.
And Kevin Willard's the head coach of Villanova. And after what happened last year and him leaving, I made, even if Villanova won, even if they were the better team,
yes,
I would pick Utah State. That's how.
And don't you feel better for doing that? Don't you feel better? You held strong to your principles and revenge.
Yes. I'm petty like that.
Same.
Do they have you on any more assignments this weekend?
No. Well,
What's that
we're
about?
back on the Raiders. We're back on the Raiders grind, just helping out on the first and second round of the tournament. But it was fun. It was fun, though. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, we enjoy you as always, Ryan. We appreciate you, Ryan McFadden of ESPN. We'll do it again next week, Ryan. Appreciate you.
Sounds good, guys. Take care. As always, thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank
you, Ryan.
That really is that should be the byline of every story for when we ask, is your bracket busted?
Yeah.
If I would have known, I would have picked the other two. I love that. Ryan, I wish I would have known. Yeah, me too. But me and Ryan are in the same boat. Got Zona winning it all. Not Sparty.
You think you're pretty smart, don't you?
I do think I'm pretty smart, Clay. Actually, that reminds me. I'm not doing so hot in our VIPs leaderboard.
You weren't doing too bad, actually.
I was, and then it was late. It was the late game Saturday.
Okay.
Sunday, not so pretty.
I know Texas looked good against Gonzaga, and
why would I bring it up to myself?
Just riding high.
You can go to the LV Sports Network app.
Yep.
Check out the leaderboard.
You can come here to the lobby and see the TV you could win. It's big. It's beautiful.
You mean the one that's in the back of my trunk?
Yeah. I mean, it's sitting there right behind the front desk. That could be yours.
First place, $750. Second place, 65-inch LG 4K TV. Third place, VGK prize pack. We don't get to win any of that. There's no VIP leaderboard prize pack, is there, Clay?
No, unless you count Fitz taking us to Chili's for Triple Dipper. That would be...
I hope he understands, it's one Triple Dipper for all of us. Each. Yeah. We're not sharing. He's got that IFL money now.
I have a feeling it's for everybody. I think it's like a shareable. I have a feeling that, because...
No, that's my meal.
Yeah.
That and chicken enchilada soup.
Yeah. The cup, not the bowl.
Definitely the bowl. Definitely the bowl.
We're not putting this on the expense account. The per diem doesn't count.
Not
doesn't cover
ours.
bowls.
That's an IFL expense account. Sorry, Fitzy. 702-365-9200. We'll continue to get your final reaction. We will have a nice little helping of charcuterie.
Let's do it.
Coming up next. And we have still not talked about the latest, greatest, biggest contract in the National Football League today. Maybe we'll get to that next here on the Morning Tailgate, Raider Nation Radio 920.
The tailgate is packed full of goodies, and we're hungry. We've got appetizers to entrees. But to start it off, let's open up the charcuterie on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM.
All right, leave that charcuterie in the fridge for just one more moment.
Oh, the lid's almost off.
Almost. But
right.
The topic of the day was Dan Orlovsky talking about how Ty Simpson is QB1. Well, in terms of are we blowing this out of proportion in terms of the topic, what is being talked about today, on the Pat McAfee show, which just started, their first guest was none other than Dan Orlovsky, who is now not backtracking by any sense of the imagination. He's actually standing firm, but further explaining his take and his stance on Ty Simpson versus Dan Orlovsky.
I think Ty Simpson is QB1. I think Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in this class.
And he stood by that again in the last few minutes talking on the Pat McAfee show. I do think it says something that on the Pat McAfee show, which is considered one of the most popular ESPN shows going right now.
Yep. The kids love it.
The first guest is Dan Orlovsky talking about this subject.
Mm-hmm. Not in studio, but in the Range Rover.
In the Range Rover.
Yeah.
But here's the biggest takeaway, and as we put a bow on this conversation, because, again, it's one man's opinion. There's going to be many opinions, and that's fine. His argument is tape versus traits. Fernando Mendoza has the traits of QB1, of a franchise guy, of the guy. He says his stance is that the tape puts it in the favor of Ty Simpson. He has better tape, more impressive throws, more impressive asks of him with less around him. Now, Vinny pointed out there's going to be 12 guys. There was 12 guys at the Combine from Alabama. Fernando Mendoza was the only Indiana player. That's what Vinny said.
Mm-hmm. So you're surrounded by talent, elite talent.
So when he sits there and says, Ty Simpson did more with less, well, the argument is, yeah, Indiana won the national championship, but how many NFLers were on Indiana compared to Alabama on this team? That's something remains to be seen. We'll find out.
Traits versus tape.
Traits versus the tape. Dan Orlovsky is siding with the tape, but he just said he thinks the tape matters more for quarterbacks than the traits unless you're a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 pick in the draft, which isn't Fernando Mendoza going to be top 1?
It further convolutes it, unless he wants to go back to that one little bit at the end when he talked to Green. He's like, well, what I was saying is that
the
value.
And again, it's to be clear, Dan Orlovsky is not putting down Fernando Mendoza. He's simply raising up Ty Simpson more than what people believe. I think it's more about that than saying Fernando is not the guy or not a guy. He just really, again, he's in Ty Simpson's camp. He also put to bed, look, he's like, forget with the same agency stuff. The agents work for us. It's not the other way around.
CAA is probably one of the largest agencies in the world. They, from actors to musicians, they cover everybody.
As I said at the top, I was having fun. I didn't for a second think that kind of conspiracy theory is even remotely close. I also don't know that ESPN would ever tell somebody, hey, we need this. Again, I was dripping in sarcasm earlier, but
yes,
he made it a point to point those two things out, being like, no, nobody's going to tell. Like, this is what I'm putting my name to it.
He goes, they get a percentage of what I make. I don't make enough for them to pay me. Okay, so forget it.
So that is the latest on the Dan Orlovsky versus Fernando Mendoza soap opera, which is what has seemingly turned out to be.
I don't want it to end.
I'm sure it won't, Clay.
I think this deserves a cliffhanger. All right, second helping of the charcuterie. Let's get out the jelly. Let's get out the fine meats and the fine cheeses. NFL.com. Which NFL team is enjoying its best 2026 offseason? Titans, Panthers, Raiders significantly improved. And the NFL has used Maurice Jones-Drew, former Raider, to pick apart the Raiders. And he says, I love the hiring of Clint Kubiak. I appreciated how the Raiders rebuilt themselves by signing guard Spencer Burford and Tyler Linderbaum. Spencer Burford gets top billing here. I love this. And it helps pave the way for Genti and protect rookie quarterback Fernando Mendoza. But he goes further. He says the Raiders, who were planning for life without Max Crosby, did a nice job of fortifying the front seven. Ultimately keeping Crosby after the trade fell through feels like the cherry on top for me. MJD says Las Vegas should be much more competitive in 2026. And there you have it.
Who are the teams most improved? Panthers, Titans, Raiders?
Yeah, Nick Shook took the Panthers, or Nick Shook took the Titans, and Eric Edholm took the Panthers.
Okay. So those three as the most improved?
Yeah, you know what? And those are good cases. Like, it's almost like out of those three teams, if you put them together and like, all right, who's the best out of those three? It looks like a dead heat. The way they manufactured, put so much money and invested money into their team, and with the Panthers feeling like, hey, we're a wild card team. We just needed to have this great offseason to push even further and win that division outright.
Yeah, I did an event last night at Allegiant Stadium with Rod Woodson, and I asked him before the event, I go, so what'd you think of what the Raiders did? And the first name out of his mouth, Tyler Linderbaum.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge. And he wasn't just talking about the money, he wasn't just talking about the contract, but just in terms of fixing what was so broken last year, which was that offensive line. He was effusive in his praise for Tyler Linderbaum. Obviously, his other connections with Baltimore, he saw firsthand the effect Tyler Linderbaum had. And that's why I asked Ryan, I go, we really haven't been able to do a deep dive. Obviously, Ashton Genty is going to be somebody who's going to reap the rewards, right? But to me, Jackson Powers-Johnson might be the next guy. And I know Fernando's going to be there too. But just giving Jackson Powers-Johnson the frame of reference, like, dude, this is your guard now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is where you're at now. Go dominate. Be the best there. And the other part of the thing we were talking about is how Tyler Linderbaum's an eraser. Like, not just moving people, but fixing things at the line of scrimmage. For all the praise, and rightfully so, giving Fernando Mendoza, the kudos of being an elite processor at the line of scrimmage, understanding where the ball needs to go, how quickly it needs to get out of his hand. Tyler Linderbaum in that communication, one, will help that in terms of that processing, especially in the transition to the NFL, but the communication with his fellow interior linemen. And that's why I wonder if Spencer Burford is going to obviously be brought in to compete. Mm-hmm. But would that make you feel more comfortable if you're Rick Dennison in that offensive line grouping, if Caleb Rogers is in there, knowing Tyler Linderbaum is going to help erase some of those mistakes that may be made? And that's why I think it's not just him moving people, not just him paving the way for Ashton Genty, but helping Jackson Powers-Johnson, Caleb Rogers, Burford, whoever it is, pave the way on that interior offensive line.
Yeah, we saw how last year the center, Jordan Meredith, was put in to start calling out, schemes and looking at, the defense and helping Geno Smith. And there were so many times where Geno would shake his head and then call timeout right at the very last second. Yeah. They'd run the next play, and it would be a tackle for loss. The plays that were getting called out in the defensive schemes that the center was identifying were all wrong. In fact, they were getting, they were actually probably being disguised, and they're being read wrong. And at the same time, it just unfolded where nothing worked on the offensive line. This time around, you got somebody who's very good at that and has had good experience in it. And now everyone can start learning a little bit more from what Tyler can do. All you need him to do is just continue what he's been doing for the past 4 or 5 seasons in Baltimore. That's all you're asked to do, because this team just needs to get to that point, just to get their head above water so they can start being successful. JPJ can learn from that. And possibly even DJ Glaze as he fights it out with guys like Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. Charles Grant will be also in a dogfight as well with Burford.
So when you bring up those 3 most improved teams, to me, it's not even close who improved the most. It's the Raiders. And that's just not because we covered just on paper, I don't think there's a more improved team in the National Football League from where they were to what they could look like now in terms of the Raiders. You could even make the argument if it was just Tyler Linderbaum, the Raiders might have been the most improved team, at least on the offensive side, just because, again, how far broken they were on the offensive side. But good news for the Raiders, it's not just Tyler Linderbaum. It's Quay Walker. It's Nakobe Dean. It's Kwity Paye. It's Jalen Naylor. So you look at all that, and to me, it's a no-doubter.
All right, let's look ahead to a couple years from now.
What?
And what would happen in the NFL if there was eventually an 18-game schedule. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk talked about this instance and why we might be seeing some talks about this coming up in this summer and perhaps a deal being made sooner than we think.
Super Bowl 62 in Atlanta, February of 2028. They don't have a date for that game yet. And It's unheard of to be less than 23 months away from a Super Bowl and not know when it's going to be played. The reason they don't have a date, I'm told, they're holding it open in case they get to 18 games by 2027 and they need to slip it back a week or so. You throw in 2 buys and then it gets even more complicated. So that's why there isn't a date. And it tells me that now that J.C. Treader has been installed, I think they're going to move quickly to try to get a deal that would include 18 regular season games, 16 annual international games. Get it done now. We see the NFL moving on the broadcast deals. I think this is a time of aggressive business deal making by the NFL. And one other wrinkle, because it could be hard to sell 18 to the rank and file. There's an idea floating around, 18 games, every player limited to 17 games.
Ooh,
Whoa.
Radical thoughts. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.
Don't like that at all.
You don't like the limit?
Don't like
Don't
that
like the
at
game
all.
limit?
Not in the slightest. No, thank you.
I have a problem that the Players Association will feel the same way because there could be
That's
all
a
sorts
game
of
check.
That's a game check. There's all sorts of contract details that go into
that's a game check.
downs, tackles, stats, all that stuff that goes into it.
If you're telling me, let's just pick Ashton Genty. Let's just pick Ashton Genty. Okay, he let's just say he has a forget the contract. You're 100% right. There's a lot of escalators. A guy comes 5 tackles shy of hitting a 200K escalator. Like, that's massive. Those kinds of things. So contract aside, but just like history, like if Ashton Genty, let's just say he's at 1,950 yards, he has a chance to go over 2K. Again, we're having fun here, but like,
sure.
pick any milestone you want, and he has to sit out the last game. He doesn't have a chance to be one of the few to hit 2K. I hate everything about that. I don't like that at all. No, thank you.
All right, what about
back to the room you go to draw up what? No, that what? A player has to sit out 1 game per season,
and it's in the essence of, hey, we're trying to look out for player safety.
Dumb. No.
If you're getting 2 bye weeks, isn't that the player safety condition?
Hate it. Can't.
I don't see the union agreeing to that because that keeps money away from the players itself.
Bingo. Playoff, if a starting quarterback has to sit out for a game, that's what makes the NFL so great. It's a week-to-week league. Every single game matters. And you're telling me Patrick Mahomes, you're telling me Josh Allen, you're telling me Matt Stafford, they all got to sit out for a game? That means they gotta look on the schedule and be like, yeah, they can sit out that game. Are you kidding me?
Now, what if you're like somebody even like Tommy Eichenberg? There's a lot more Tommy Eichenbergs in the league. They're like, hey, if I could at least reach 3 games started or 5 games started, I get a $150,000 bonus. But you're going to keep me out of this 1 game because I can't do it. I don't know. There's a lot that goes into this. But at that moment when you say, all right, if you don't have a scheduled date for Atlanta and that Super Bowl, hey, hotel rooms have to get booked.
Sense. Yeah,
banquet rooms have to get, conference rooms have to get set up. Things have to be finitely figured out. 23 months away is very short amount of time to go into like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it feels like that'll be real.
Owners meetings are coming up.
Yeah, it feels like that'll be real.
Seems like that's going to be something that's going to get brought up quite quickly.
Who came up with the idea for a player to sit out? Is that Florio, or was that was just one of the things he heard?
One of the things he heard.
Yeah, that person needs to go away.
It was Roger Goodell that brought it up. It was going to be great. Just point it all to him. Hey, we'll step into the final sit down in just a few minutes. Before we do, we'll give you a chance to win tickets for the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, that's right. VGK, March 30th, the Barn Burner against Vancouver. You want to go? We got 2 tickets. Be caller number 9 at 702-365-9200. VGK, Vancouver, March 30th, here on Raider Nation Radio.